Hi, Thomas Brinsko here, publisher of BIC Magazine and bicmagazine.com. I'd like to visit with you today about Donald Trump's second term and a major shift coming in U.S. energy policy. Today I'm going to speak about overall objectives and some of the tools Trump might use to accomplish his objectives. But as more announcements are made and more news develops, we'll probably delve deeper into particular items in a future blog. But today, let's just look at the future the best we can with what we know today. As Donald Trump prepares for his second term, the energy sector rejoices in the upcoming decisive shift. His administration's approach promises to undo many of President Biden's policies while championing traditional energy sources and recalibrating federal priorities. Trump's likely focus includes 1. Rolling back climate-driven regulations, secondly, reshaping energy policy, and thirdly, boosting fossil fuel production. Trump's first term in office halted many of Obama's energy policies, but I would argue that the changes were short-lived, primarily because they were built on fragile executive orders that Biden could just come in reverse, rather than legislative action. The climate bureaucracy, which is rooted in regulations like EPA's 2009 endangerment finding, which made CO2 a pollutant, and the Paris Agreement, the international agreement, both those remained intact. So to ensure lasting change, Trump needs a more systematic approach this time around. He should submit the Paris Agreement to the Senate for rejection, and they should revise the Clean Air Act to exclude greenhouse gases as pollutants. Trump could really disentangle the U.S. energy policy from global climate objectives, which would restore the U.S. energy policy focus to things that are important like affordability, abundance, and reliability. Another way Trump might roll back regulation is through something called confessing error. Confessing error is, for me, a pretty new concept. Now, if you've been watching me, you know I and many others have accused the Biden administration of stretching regulatory authority to enforce climate goals. Oftentimes, they do this by pretextual justifications. Agencies aren't permitted to lie about their reasons for imposing a regulation, which is a doctrine known as the rule against pretext. Chris Horner, in a recent Wall Street Journal article, suggests that Trump could counteract this through a strategy known as confessing error. By reviewing agency records and identifying instances of regulatory overreach, the Trump administration could swiftly reverse rules without protracted litigation. This approach would allow Trump to undo many of the newer regulations undermining energy production before they ever achieve their intended outcomes. Personnel choices are also very central to Trump's energy strategy. His recent picks, Chris Wright as Energy Secretary and Doug Burgum as Interior Secretary, underline his administration's commitment to boosting energy production across the board. Wright is the CEO of Liberty Energy, and he's been a vocal advocate for fossil fuels and innovation, while Burgum, North Dakota's governor, has championed carbon capture and storage alongside increased oil and gas production. Together, these two leaders undoubtedly will aim to foster innovation, streamline permitting, and prioritize private sector investment. While low-carbon sectors may face challenges under the new administration, some technologies, such as advanced geothermal and modular nuclear reactors, could see support. Burgum's leadership on CCS, backed by North Dakota's vast subsurface storage potential, could align with Trump's broader goals for energy independence while addressing carbon emissions in a manner consistent with his priorities. Renewable energy sectors definitely face potential headwinds under a second Trump administration. The Inflation Reduction Act, which has supported wind, solar, and storage projects, may be scaled back or eliminated, especially with input from the newly formed Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, that President-elect Trump has tasked Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk to lead. This could result in a significant drop in renewable energy installations over the next decade. However, Trump's commitment to permitting reform will mitigate some of these challenges. It won't make it cheaper, but it'll make it easier for all energy projects, renewable and fossil alike, to get their necessary approvals. Trump's policies They could create a little mixed picture for energy costs. I think generally energy costs will go down because of advanced supply, but while aiming to lower prices through expanded production, increased demand from LNG exports and gas-fired power gen could drive some prices higher in the short term. As a recent Wood Mackenzie report observes, government actions like expedited pipeline investments may help supply keep pace with demand, but market forces will ultimately dictate production levels. I think that perhaps the most significant change the Trump administration will bring is returning the climate and energy policy debate to Congress. Critics of current climate policies argue that decision-making has been dominated by unelected regulators and global agreements, which have sidelined public and legislative input. By focusing on legislative reforms and eliminating international commitments like the Paris Agreement, Trump could reestablish congressional authority over energy policy. This approach really aligns with recent Supreme Court decisions affirming limits on agency authority, and we've talked about that in my blog in the past, pretty recently in fact. Trump's energy agenda prioritizes fossil fuels, deregulation, and innovation while challenging the premise that climate change is the most urgent global threat. This is a fork in the road for U.S. energy policy. His administration's actions could reshape not only U.S. energy policy, but also global energy markets, especially if increased oil and gas production displaces supplies from authoritarian regimes like Russia. As the energy sector awaits the new administration's next steps, one thing's clear: the Trump presidency will define the nation's energy priorities for years to come. Drill, baby, drill. If you like our vlogs, please visit bicmagazine.com and hit the subscribe button to get energy news updates directly to your inbox. And be sure to follow Bic Magazine on LinkedIn and Twitter. I hope to see you again soon.